On the night of January 18th, following the release of the first 4 episodes of Hazbin Hotel, an adult animated project from indie artist Vivian Medrano, I decided to tweet out my initial thoughts on the series, and was asked if scenes involving a character named Angel Dust could be seen as fetishization of SA, which stands for that, and victim blaming of his experiences. Apparently, there'd been some prior discussion and controversy about it going around Twitter, but I hadn't heard of it. So, just giving my raw, personal thoughts, I said that obviously wasn't the case for anyone with eyes and ears willing to interpret it, and really, I thought that was where it would end. A viewer asked for my opinion about a topic, I gave it. But, to my surprise, shortly after I sent that tweet out, I started getting an influx of notifications from people who were offended by my position, mostly telling me I was disgusting, had disappointed them, and was invalidating / didn't care about real SA survivors for saying as much. Needless to say, it was a lot, and I couldn't figure out why I was getting such a visceral reaction since no one was actually trying to properly explain why what I said was bad. Most of it was just rage posts telling me I was a terrible person that invalidated real victims by having this divergent opinion on a piece of media. And what's worse, when I eventually found a few replies that did try to explain the problem, I didn't think they were adequate justifications, so I gave another response getting more specific with my interpretation, and that led to even more vitriol. It was like a never-ending back and forth of me giving further explanation to my thought process and getting the response that I was disgusting in return. And it left me so confused, as I wasn't attempting to invalidate anyone. I know multiple people that have been through SA, and I would never want to see that kind of experience fetishized or portrayed exploitatively, as I've seen done in multiple pieces of media before. But the thing is, Hazbin doesn't do that, at least from what I can gather, having analyzed the scene and asked the SA survivors I know their opinions. Of course, not every survivor is going to hold the same beliefs, they aren't a hive mind. However, I do think that factually speaking, most of the ongoing controversy surrounding this particular episode is a little too complex for Twitter to handle. So, if you don't mind me switching things up from my normal format today, I'd like to analyze how Hazbin treats the subjects mentioned, why I got the response I did, and what it says about the greater fandom of Hazbin as a whole. Sorry I'm not coming back with a big video to start the year off. I have one in the works that should be pretty sick, but for the time being, I hope this can tide you over. Trust me, I didn't think I'd be starting off my year defending Hazbin Hotel of all things either, but it's an interesting subject I'd like to talk about, and I don't believe anyone else has covered, so that's what we're gonna be doing. Starting with how the essay itself is portrayed in the show. Content warning, of course, for those who may be sensitive to it. So, giving a little context to what the series is about, in case you're unaware, Hazbin Hotel focuses on, I guess I should say, is advertised as focusing on the Princess of Hell attempting to redeem sinners through getting them to give up their wicked ways. And the first resident we're ever introduced to is a famous prawn star by the name of Angel Dust, who, from his first appearance in the show's pilot, is established to be impulsive, violent, hypersexual, and overly confident, later discovering in a music video centered around him, Addict, that he acts this way to cope with the abuse he suffered at the hands of his boss, Valentino. Now, there's a discussion of its own to be had about Valentino, as the series often portrays him as a bumbling idiot that can't do anything right without being told, creating this whiplash effect when it flips to him being a menacing threat over Angel, but I'll probably touch on that in my full review of the series whenever that comes out. What we're focusing on right now is the 4th episode of the series, Masquerade, which is explicitly about explaining why Angel acts the way he does and demonstrating what he goes through on a day-to-day basis, including suffering abuse on 2 separate occasions. The first, a confrontation between Angel and Val in his dressing room, is intentionally shot in dark lighting using uncomfortably close upward angles that emphasize Val's overwhelming stature to help us see us from Angel's perspective. There's also a distinct lack of comedy or background music compared to every other scene with Angel so far, indicating that this is being presented in a more personal, realistic manner, showing a less exaggerated, timidly quiet version of Angel we've never seen before. It's a short look behind the bubbly mask his character's worn from the start of the series that he forces himself to put back on for his musical number, Poison, a sinister pop song describing how Angel allowed himself to fall into the toxic arms of Val but isn't able to escape. So his coping mechanism is to dissociate and put on the act we've watched him do across the series, attempting to reclaim his sexuality through fake smiles and being overly suggestive while his true self struggles behind him. None of what Angel's forced to do during this sequence is ever graphically showcased or held on, instead cutting away right before things can get too explicit, but we can understand enough through implication that it seriously damages him and weighs on his mind at all times, explaining Angel's over-reliance on alcohol, substances, and denial. It's a dependency that's recognized all too well by the hotel's bartender Husk, who, after getting Angel to storm out and start self-destructing over criticizing his behavior, saves him and tells a story. One where he was once a powerful gambler and overlord of hell who similarly lost his soul to a powerful demon's promises, being indebted to a point he might never climb out. It's a humbling moment for the both of them, as up till now, the two have constantly been fighting. Husk due to thinking Angel's act was purely for show, and Angel due to thinking Husk couldn't get his situation. But here, they're able to see how alike they truly are, and Husk decides to communicate this through his own song, Loser Baby, a self-mocking Broadway-style number about how messed up people aren't alone and can find solace in each other by owning who they are rather than letting it define them, giving room for the two to open up and face those issues together. On a personal note, as far as songs in the series go, it's gotta be my favorite so far for the reason that, besides Keith David being a phenomenal singer, it holds actual emotional relevance to characters we've spent the episode getting to know. It's still not anywhere close to great, as the lyrics are shit, it's not transitioned into very well, and Angel finding the strength to go along with it so quickly feels rushed, going back to one of Hazbin's biggest issues, its unnaturally fast pacing, but I won't deny that among the songs we've gotten, it's the only one so far that I felt was well conveyed. And so, with all of that out of the way, let's get to the fun parts. People claiming this episode is fetishizing abuse and victim-blaming Angel. Yay. But before I get to that, and no, I'm not just stalling, I would like to lead into it by discussing some of the behind-the-scenes drama that's definitely affected how people view the scene. Starting off on the lower end of controversy, a lot of fans are mad that Viv is selling merch of Valentino, claiming that this equates to them profiting off Angel's assault, to which I'd say, first of all, none of the merch involving Val depicts him going after Angel in a way that could be seen as sexual, let alone sexually gratifying. At best, having him tower over Angel as they're seemingly about to have a fight. But second, and way more importantly, do you guys not get that people enjoy villains? Like, if someone buys an action figure of Darth Vader, are they suddenly in favor of child murder? Does buying a Griffith statue make the buyer okay with a ton of fucked up behavior? No, of course not. Villains can be just as marketable as heroes for how much we love to hate them. That's such a basic concept that's been around for so long, I am shocked that anyone would try to argue otherwise. Creating merch of a fictional character doesn't mean the seller or buyer endorses their fictional actions by doing so. That's absurd. There could be an argument made if a piece of official merchandise showed Val and Angel being lovey-dovey or sexually provocative, but like I said, that doesn't exist. I checked the wiki featuring every single merch drop that's ever been done for Hazbin, and Hell of a Boss for that matter, and as far as I could tell, never found anything. All they've ever sold are standees, keychains, and prints of Valentino by himself, with his team the V's, and in one instance, as I mentioned, about to fight Angel. Nothing more. At worst, you could get mad at the keychain for sort of chibi-fying him, but that's about as far as you could go. Moving on to something a bit more reasonable though, there's been tons of criticism leveled at Viv directly for tweeting about Poison using sex puns, and yeah, I'm not gonna lie, she has a frustrating track record with Twitter, and considering how the song represents incredibly real issues that relate to a lot of real people, this does come off pretty tone-deaf. You shouldn't judge the song and its content based off a most likely mindless promotional tweet, but I do get where people are coming from saying this makes them uneasy. Same goes for the biggest issue most critics have regarding the visuals, that being how it was discovered someone with a kink for non-consensual Hazbin-ships storyboarded it. That's for sure a detail that could actively get viewers to potentially look at the scene in a different light. But, and this is a big but. If it was at any point intended to be read that way by the storyboarder, it doesn't come through during the sequence. None of what Angel goes through is depicted positively whatsoever. He is clearly distressed in every scenario he's put into, making a regretful or scared face before or after each encounter, and ending in him breaking down from the stressful trauma it induces. At the same time though, conversely, right as the act is about to happen, Angel puts on his self-assured mask, so that avoids the potential for fetishists to find pleasure in him being distressed. Plus, like I said, the scenes of him facing assault always cut away before they can get too extreme. Not to mention that, you know, he's singing a song about how he hates this and it's destroying him from the inside. When you take that into account, it's pretty evident what side of this the scene is leaning towards. And I bet you $1,000,000 that a majority of people wouldn't have as difficult a time comprehending that if it weren't for this one person behind the scenes who didn't write the sequence itself or animate it. They merely drew what was asked of them, and it just so happens that they're also into weird shit. This person barely had any impact on the actual content of the episode, and whatever agenda they might have potentially tried to push regardless isn't visible in the end product. I'd hardly even go as far as to say it's overly gratuitous. Yes, we do get a fairly deep glimpse into Angel's hardships that leave little to the imagination on what's happening to him, but we don't see any more than what's necessary to get it across. Believe it or not, this is intended as an adult show, no matter how childish the series or its fanbase may be. It is allowed to depict this type of serious subject if it wants to, and not have it be seen as fetishizing or purely for shock value if its inclusion serves a purpose. There is definitely a line of tastelessness that shouldn't be crossed if the crew don't want to get those sorts of accusations. But I, as well as the SA survivors I spoke to, and many other SA survivors agree it doesn't cross that line. If you want an example of a show going too far, look at the broom scene from 13 Reasons Why. That's the moment where a guy, to put it bluntly, gets a broom shoved up his ass in slow, unnerving detail until it's pulled out with blood visible. And the only reasons it's being presented that way are to express that this guy is being bullied and you should feel sympathy for him. Something that could have been conveyed far less graphically. Now that's an emotionally manipulative, long, violent, tasteless depiction of SA that you can point out as being used for an ulterior motive. Meanwhile, Angel's song is communicating an aspect of his character, giving us scale and insight into all he's forced to do on a regular basis, provides great contrast between his persona and real life, doesn't linger on anything in particular, and has a reason to exist in its current state. It is partially done for the sake of evoking an emotional response, but so is the rest of the episode, and none of it mocks, belittles, or over-sexualizes Angel other than in circumstances where he chooses to do it himself to cope. This was actually a particular element of his character that the SA survivors I spoke to said was incredibly realistic and an experience many who've been through similar abuse can relate to. It might not be a universally practiced method of dealing with trauma, but it's undeniable that those types of people do exist, and they deserve representation without being told it's purely there to fetishize them. Not every SA survivor will have the same coping mechanism, so it's important to stay open-minded rather than jumping to the worst possible conclusion. Context matters, and that thought is equally applicable to the situation with Husk. You see, the main problem I've heard people have with Loser Baby is that they take it as literally as possible. They hear Husk calling Angel a fucked up little whiny bitch and assume he's saying Angel's trauma doesn't matter, but that's not it at all. He isn't calling Angel out for being abused, he's calling him out for thinking there's no one he can go to, so his best option is to wallow in self-loathing, allowing it to define him while blocking others out instead of accepting who he is and finding people that can relate to being fuck-ups. And that's another thing. Husk isn't comparing his and Angel's trauma on the same level. To be honest, at first I misunderstood it as that too, but having listened a couple more times, I realized realized he's specifically comparing them and how they've both made mistakes and been duped. So, although they aren't exactly alike, and Husk doesn't try to claim as much, they can find common ground in a way that no one else at the hotel can. And they can go on to learn more about each other from there. It's even demonstrated visually by first starting with Husk guiding Angel's dances, but slowly letting him move on his own, eventually leading to them becoming effortlessly in sync through honestly proclaiming their faults. Isn't that wild? Hazbin Hotel being subtle? It's so out of character for the series to not be overly in your face about literally everything, but it's right there, and it helps further accentuate the message perfectly, especially when you compare it to Poison, where Angel is forcibly chained and pulled around against his will. That's visual storytelling. I'm at a loss for words other than good job, Viv. You simultaneously made the intent of your song known if the lyrics and subtext weren't enough, whilst further justifying seeing what we do during Poison. I will have to deduct points for Loser Baby happening too closely after Angel's breakdown, leading to people making assumptions that they're directly related and therefore the lyrics are insensitive, but still, you did your very best in the moment, and I totally picked up on the message. It might be just a tad confusing at first if you aren't paying attention, but it becomes pretty easy to follow if you engage with the media on its level. That's the mindset I was coming from when I said I thought the ideas of this glorifying essay and victim-blaming Angel's trauma were factually incorrect. Because they are. If you disagree with the depiction or don't like it, that's fine. You're totally entitled to that opinion. I'd love to hear your perspective on why you disagree with this scene. But that doesn't mean you can make baseless claims founded on outside knowledge or poor bad faith interpretation and shame anyone who goes against you by essentially using real SA survivors as a meat shield. That is disgusting. I was literally told that I should, quote, stop pretending I care about victims, correlating my opinion on how a piece of media should factually be interpreted with not caring about SA survivors. Do you realize how fucking insulting that is? To say I don't care about people who have been abused based off a fucking media interpretation? Why would somebody say that and think it was a perfectly reasonable statement? Well, one of the SA survivors I know gave an interesting take that really made me think. They said that younger people who've gone through these kinds of experiences can often have trouble differentiating what personally is too much for them from what's actually crossing a line and deserves to be called out. After all, every person has their own limits, and there could be specific triggers that are especially harmful or damaging to them. But a younger person might not be able to discern the difference between that and a scene that's potentially unacceptable. And what fanbase for an adult cartoon is younger and more juvenile than Hazbin Hotel? It's something that can relate back to basic media literacy. Remember when I made a video discussing how not everyone could tell you're supposed to hate Gabby for what she represents in Attack on Titan? That might be what's going on here with Hazbin Hotel, just on a far more serious scale. These moments of Angel facing abuse are meant to make you feel uncomfortable. That's the desired effect. The writers and animators want to put you into Angel's mindset so you can figure out why he acts like he does so often. It's necessary for getting a deeper investment in the character, but in order for it to be effective, you need to be okay with feeling uncomfortable and dirty. How else are you going to truly get in touch with them on an emotional level? Not everything can be left up to interpretation and innuendo. That creates a divide between the audience and character, and when done intentionally, that can also be great. It can build mystery and a sense that we're missing something so horrifying it can't be described or visualized through direct reference, but Viv isn't going for that. She wants us to feel intimately engaged with Angel and his struggles, so to do so, she spotlights an unsettling truth while trying not to get too overwhelming with it. But as a result of her younger fan base, they have a difficult time viewing the topic as maturely as she'd have hoped. And it isn't helped by her own comments or staff picks. Like, the fact she tried to justify the staff members' inclusion by saying they're an SA survivor only for it to turn out that wasn't the case, absolutely moronic. And she has these kinds of childish or otherwise thoughtless posts all the time. It's sort of what she's known for at this point, and that juvenile cluelessness translates to her fanbase. in a way, you could even say she created an atmosphere ripe for this type of controversy to happen, putting too much faith in her audience to handle a complex topic without leading into it slowly over the previous episodes, which have almost none of the serious melodrama, or being aware of the main demographic she's appealing to. It's a depressing thought in that having cultivated a mainly adolescent viewer base through her simple, blatant, watered-down, safe, edgy writing, she could continue having controversies like this when attempting to dive into darker subject matter that require deeper analysis to fully digest. Of course, not the whole fandom is like this. There are a good number of adults and essay survivors who simply disagree with the portrayal and would rather it was different, but considering the response I got just for giving my own thoughts, I'm not so sure they're the majority. But hey, if Viv wants to continue writing stories like this, marking the road for possible improvements down the line, I wouldn't mind. It could take some growing pains before she truly feels free to cover this type of stuff without potentially massive retaliation, and that's her own fault. But to me, it seems like she is genuinely making an effort, as messy as it is, and that's admirable, no matter how bad the rest of the series is by comparison. I don't know for sure how Hazbin will turn out in the end once the first season finishes and I can form a greater opinion on it, but if anything, this fourth episode has at least reignited an interest for me that the first three slowly doused. So I guess that means I'm all in for the long haul, whether that's for better or for worse. I've been Just Stop. You've been a hell of an audience. Thanks for watching.